Hi guys. So thank you guys again for having me here, Esports Arena Extra Life. My name is Matt, and I am a physical therapist. I'm also a strength and conditioning specialist, but I'm also the head of physical performance and esports medicine for Counter Logic Gaming. So I work with them over at CLG, and I'm also a pretty big gamer myself. So I hit Grandmaster this season for Overwatch. So yes, that was a big accomplishment for me. But yes, thank you. Thank you. I'm excited. I'm excited because I want to help you guys learn how you can play for longer and with less pain, just through some basic tips about posture and ergonomics and just health as a gamer. And it's a topic I feel like, all right, we all know it's pretty important, but it's something we tend to forget about or we don't really pay attention to, and we have a tough time following through with it. And because of that, I want to have a talk with you guys about health as gamers and why it's so tough for us to pay attention to things like posture, our diet, our lifestyles, and just in general, our health when we're too focused on playing. And I see it happen all the time, not only with the patients that I treat, but also when I was first introduced to the teams over at CLG. So they had this tendency to ignore their posture, sometimes forget to eat. They didn't really even consider the position of their desks, their chairs, their peripherals as they played for super long hours. And to no surprise, some of them had pain. And if that sounds familiar to you guys, then listen up, because there's only one reason why they are able to stay healthy now. And that is that they understood it was important. They recognized that, hey, there's all these other parts of their lives that they have to pay attention to in order to be healthy and to play without pain. And it was important enough for them to start to incorporate it into their lives and their lifestyles and their practice schedules so that they could play without pain. And they're doing well now. So that's what I want to start to talk about. We have this problem, and then we're going to move on to talk about or define esports, ergonomics, and a little bit about posture. And then I'll give you guys my secrets, my gems of advice about posture and ergonomics. Keeping it simple though. So let's talk. What's the problem here? Why am I here? Some of us have pain, and it's frustrating because we want to play and we want to get better, but we can't because things hurt. And what do? We look for some advice. And while we're often given some great tools to address our pain, it comes back and it sucks because it keeps coming back, especially because we want to get better and we can't play. So that's frustrating for us. And one reason is that, we really just don't understand our pain. And those who give us advice, while they often have great intent, they address things at the surface. They address the pain at the surface. So they address the source, but not so much the cause. So they say, all right, stretch your muscles. It'll feel better. And it does. But again, the pain comes back, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating. So then we look for more advice. And then we start to believe labels of carpal tunnel, ligament tears, calcific tendinopathy, and that shapes our views on what we think we're capable of doing. And those views aren't always true because we just don't understand our pain. And that's my big message. That's why I'm here in esports, because I want to help you guys understand your pain and then provide the most accurate advice that addresses both the cause and the source. So that's all based on my experience as a therapist, as a trainer, and largely a gamer. So there's actually also another problem, is that there's so much advice out there, but we just don't really know how to incorporate it. I mean, there's probably millions of recommendations on how to have better posture, but we don't know what to do with it. I mean, how do you have great posture all the time? How do you make sure you don't have pain? And really, it's just about keeping it simple and just having a plan. So, before I share with you guys my guidelines on posture and ergonomics, let's first define esports and help you guys realize why, when we define it, we can better help ourselves play without pain. But before we do that, let's try something. And I want everyone to see how this feels. So, a timer is going to appear on the screen for 30 seconds. And I'll explain what we'll be doing first. It's going to be an exercise, and basically what you're going to do is you're going to put your hands behind your head, and I'll try to show it to you guys. Hopefully you guys can still hear me, but you're going to put your hands behind your head, slowly bring both of your elbows back while bringing your chest up, and then reach towards the ceiling all the way up, and take a deep breath at the top, and then bring it all the way back down to behind your head and exhale on the way back forward. And it'll likely be around 4 to 5 repetitions. We're going to do that during the timer. And the moment that you guys finish, I want you guys to pay attention to how that feels. So really pay attention. So let's do it. I'm going to do it with you guys. Right here. Behind your head, elbows back, all the way up. Back down. Good. Bring it back in and exhale. Keep going. Yep. Let's go. Let's go. Oh, yeah. There we go. Last one. Last one. All right. So, how'd that feel? It should feel like your chest is a little more open, or you've finally been able to take a breath of fresh air for the first time today. And really, that's just a quick testament to how important posture is. So anyways, instead of these random Chinese characters, we're going to go on to talking about esports, about how I define it. And esports is a static endurance sport which tests our executive functions in a virtual environment. That's pretty wordy, but static meaning we're not really moving that much. Our hands and wrists and forearms, yeah, they're moving with the small mouse movements, but it's not with enough power to be considered dynamic. And endurance, because just like running, we're doing the same cyclical, repeated movements over an extended period of time. And our bodies need to be conditioned to be able to prevent injury. Right? If we're sitting and playing for 5 to 6 hours, we better be conditioned to be able to play for that long. And the executive function virtual environment part is pretty self-explanatory. Are things like working memory, attentional control, problem solving, those are all challenged in the environment of the actual game. So when we break it down like that, we can kind of see that pain in esports is actually super predictable. It's the same movements from the same muscle groups over the same joints as we play for very long hours. And it's just repetitive strain. That's the name of the game. So when we play to 5 to 6 hours, we do all these millions of little actions of our wrist and our forearm, and that breaks down our muscles and tendons, and that causes some pain. But what we often forget is that, hey, we're also holding up the weight of our head. And our head is the weight of a bowling ball, so we have to use muscles to hold that up. We're also holding up our bodies against gravity. So remember that too. Strain occurs with the muscles that are holding our bodies up. And that's why posture and ergonomics are important. So quickly, we'll talk about what posture is. It's basically the arrangement of our body parts as in relation to each other during all the positions and movements of our day. So where my head is when I'm playing, where my wrist is when I'm doing a flick shot, where my shoulder is during a team fight, that's your posture. Ergonomics is everything else around us. It's how well us as humans fit and respond into the environment that we work or game in. And environment meaning our chairs, desks, peripherals, our monitors, and I'm sure you guys have been told many times why posture and ergonomics are important. So I won't go into too much depth, but I'll just leave it at this, that it's the foundation that allows us to feel better, play for longer, and with less pain. So if there's just one thing I want you guys to understand about posture or ergonomics or health, is that we are the sum of the postures and positions we assume throughout the day. So we aren't meant to sit for 10 hours a day. We're meant to be out hunting for animals and gathering berries, going out in the wild. But because we're sitting, and often with super crappy posture, the forward head, the rounded shoulders, the arched back, our bodies adapt, and that adds up to pain, to weakness, to less endurance or ability to play without strain. And that's actually what Darshan, a player over at CLG, has told me that was the most profound thing that I talked to him about. And it was important because when we first met, I asked him to bend over to see how far he can reach, and he could barely reach past his knees. So I was disgusted, and I said, wow, you have really crappy movement. And he realized that, and it was because of how he sat with really poor posture, and that kept his hamstrings really short. So after we talked and I got him to start to exercise, he not only learned what better posture was, but actually took it upon himself to get up, do stretches during his breaks, between scrims, during his practice schedule, because he knew that if he didn't, he would end up a 50-year-old in a 22-year-old's body, and I don't think any of us want that. But fortunately, he's now only a 15-year-old in a 22-year-old's body, so I did well. So that's the secret of youth, exercise and posture and stuff. Anyways, let's talk about posture. Let's talk about the tips. What do you do? And I want to show you guys something. So try something again with me. Try to slouch. And for anyone tuning in on stream, you guys can just sit there and slouch as much as you can. Think Quasimodo. Think Golem or Smeagol or the Mirror for some of you. Anyways, so I want you guys in that position to take a deep breath. So slouch and just breathe and take a second to remember to think how that feels. Is it easy? Is it hard? And then sit up a lot taller with your chest up. Show your chest. And then take a deep breath. And then remember how that feels. Which one was easier? I think it should be pretty obvious that it was the one where you're sitting up a little taller. And think about that. If you're sitting and playing for 5 hours and you're working that hard to breathe, maybe that's a reason why after 4 to 5 hours we get mentally exhausted or we have mental fatigue when we're playing, because we're struggling so hard to deliver oxygen to our brain. So, in the same way, our postural muscles, the muscles of our wrists and hands, if they're in the wrong position, they have to work harder. And that means more pain, less playing. And we don't want that. So, let's get to it. I made a little a little cheat sheet on posture. This is something that you guys can reference to. It's on my website at 1hp.org, or I can probably tweet it out right after the presentation. But you guys can use it as a reference to what I talk about today. I'll go into a little more depth because I'm up here and talking. But I split my discussion on posture into 2 parts. One is the upper body. So the upper body. And that's important because that's what we're actually using to game. So the more awareness and understanding of the proper positions of our upper body, the less we'll look like this. And as much as that's an exaggeration, sometimes we forget to eat and take care of our bodies, and we get dangerously close to this. So it's scary. I'll still be your friend if you look like this, but some of your friends aren't as deep as I am, so they probably won't. Anyways, so you don't want to look like this. So you got to pay attention to your upper body. Next is the lower body, and it's just as important because most of the time when we have any pain in our lower back, it's a result of how we sit. So let's get talking about the upper body. And let's talk about this quick concept. And there's a lot of Smash events that go on here at Esports Arena, so maybe if you guys tune in, you guys will know. But just like in Smash, it's all about the neutral, this concept of the neutral. And in the context of biomechanics or our body, it's the position that our joints are in the least amount of stress, the least amount of load that's placed on our muscles, our tendons. And the benefit of this is that we can play for longer. We have less risk for injury if we are in this neutral position because our muscles will take longer to fatigue. All right, so let's get to it. The upper body, we focus on 3 parts. 1 being the mid-back, 2 being the neck, and then 3 being the shoulder blades. And we start with the mid-back because it's the foundation for your entire upper body. It dictates the position of your neck, your shoulder, your elbow, your hand. So wherever the position of your mid-back is, that's going to dictate wherever your neck is and so on and so forth. So all you have to remember for the mid-back is actually just one thing. Chest up, like that. Like that. And imagine that there's a string attached to your chest and someone is pulling it up and out. And it's pretty subtle. Pretty subtle. A lot of the times you'll see people kind of arch their lower back to kind of compensate for that, but it's a little less. It's just only from your mid-back. So all you have to remember for the first part of your upper body posture is chest up. Pretty simple. And the next part is the neck. And all you have to remember is chin tucked. And that's what we see the most when we're playing. We see our heads too far in front of our bodies when we're playing. And basically all I want you guys to remember is just keep your chin tucked. And it's not so much bringing your chin down, it's more bringing your head directly back. And I don't want you guys to make a multiple chin, like a double chin. It's just slightly back. You shouldn't feel any discomfort in the front of your neck. So for the mid-back, we have chest up, this guy. And for the neck, we have chin tucked. For the shoulder blade, a lot of the times you hear, all right, you have to bring your shoulder blades down and back. And unfortunately, that's misinformed information because the most common faulty position of the shoulder is that it's too low. And it's actually related to the position of your mid-back. So you have to set your mid-back up first, and then instead of bringing it back and down, we're bringing it back and up. So set your mid-back first, and then bring it back and up. And that completes the 3 things for your upper body. We have chest up, chin tucked, and shoulder blades back and up. Easy to remember. And I will be touching a little bit about the wrist, forearm, and hand more in the ergonomics section. So stay tuned for that. But first, let's talk about the lower body. Let's move on to that. And just like the upper body, you got to first consider your spine. So meaning the low back and the pelvis, which are intimately related. And you can think of them like a bucket of water. So when your pelvis rolls forward and the water spills out in front, your lower back arches, like the picture on the right. When your pelvis rolls backwards and your lower back rounds, the water spills out behind you. But when you keep it in neutral, the picture in the center, the water's nice and calm, nice and still. And that's what you want. You want to keep that bucket balanced in that neutral position. And that's it for the low back. And you guys can actually find this position by putting your hands in the shape of a C, putting it in front of your pelvis, finding that protrusion, which is the bone, and then just like this GIF, kind of rocking back and forth to the extremes, arching too far forward and then arching all the way back, and then finding the center. The center is neutral. So I show you guys in the GIF, I go to the extremes, I go into the center, I give you guys a thumbs up, and then I do some cool finger rolls. So yes, excellent. So that's how you do it. And again, for the lower back, we start with keeping the bucket balanced. And then for the rest of the lower back or lower body, it's pretty simple. You just keep your hips in neutral, which just means knees are aligned with the toes and your thighs are parallel with the ground and your feet are in contact with the ground. So that's all for the lower body. Bucket balanced, hips neutral, feet supported. And that's all 6 easy tips for posture from head to toe. Chest up, chin tucked, shoulder blades back and slightly up, bucket balanced, hips neutral, feet supported. Pretty easy. So some of you are probably thinking, all right, Matt, that's super cool. These are 6 tips that I'm never going to use. How am I supposed to actually hold this all the time? How am I supposed to have that posture when I'm playing? And the answer is that you're not. You know, you have this set point or default position of your body. And this is what you feel to be normal. And most of us, it's this rounded position, and we feel like that's normal for us because we're so used to being there. And what we're trying to do with these tips is to put yourself in the better position more and change that set point. We're trying to change your default settings so that it reflects better posture. And the only way to do that is to practice it. And they actually did some studies that showed how long it takes to improve your posture. And they found that if you dedicate 40 minutes for 5 days, you can change your motor patterns or your set point, which means you can change your posture. But 40 minutes is kind of unrealistic for everyone. I mean, no one's going to sit there with perfect posture for 40 minutes and not move. No one's going to do that. What's more realistic is that maybe take 2 to 4 weeks, dedicate 5 to 10 minutes here and there throughout the day, and then you can expect your set point to change in that time. So remember, neutral position, these 6 tips, and that it takes time to change your set point. And in that way, you can play for more with less pain and increase your gaming endurance. Perfect. So let's move on to the ergonomics section. And you know, if you forget to do any of the tips for posture, you might end up looking like this. So rings might have more value to you. You might follow people around who have rings. You might feel like you're invisible when you're near them. You know, all those stuff. Anyways, so ergonomics, while there's a lot of complexities to how we should organize the things around us, our monitors, peripherals, keyboards, everything, my goal was to create really simple rules that you guys could follow that could be applied generally. You know, so that you guys didn't have to look up and make a bunch of these really complex modifications. I wanted to keep it simple. And these are all based on my current research of ergonomics and my expertise and my experience as a physical therapist, and also my experience with those that I work with. So starting with the monitor, when you are sitting upright in that better position, the position I mentioned before, your eyes should touch the top 1/4 of the monitor, or your vision should meet the top 1/4. And then the monitor should be slightly tilted back. That position is just a little better for your eyes. It's the least visually straining. And that leads to the second tip, which is the one arm, or the modified one arm rule. Oh, let me just get this thing out of the way. There. The modified one arm rule, which is that the monitor should be one arm's distance away from your hand when you're sitting upright, plus or minus the distance of your hand. So I show you guys. That's me again. And that's how far the monitor should be, and that's based on the ability of our eyes to look towards our nose, to make the cross-eyed, because that has been linked more with visual strain or eye strain. And that's when your eyes get a little tired, or your vision kind of doubles after you play for a while, or it feels like everything's far away. I've been there. So for the monitor, it's those 2 rules. Eyes when you're sitting up tall, top 1/4 of the monitor, slightly tilted back, arms plus or minus one, monitor one arm's distance away, plus or minus the distance of your hand. And yeah, next up, let's talk about your peripherals. which everyone wants to talk about too. And you know, the discussion can be a little complicated because there's just so many types of keyboards out there, and people are creating new types of ergonomic keyboards. But in general, it's all about the neutral again. It's about not letting your wrists bend up or down or too far side to side, as well as not letting your shoulders, when you have the set position of your mouse and your keyboard, to not have your wrists pointed inwards or have it be inward relative to your elbow. So you should set the keyboard up so it's neutral like this, if you can see. And again, to remind you guys, it's all about the neutral for your peripherals. So for the monitor, it's as you're sitting up tall, top 1/4, tilted back, one arms rule. For the peripherals, it is neutral stuff. And lastly, for the armrest or your desk, it's all about keeping your forearms parallel, or you just don't let your shoulders be elevated. And if you don't use the armrest, you can use your desk, or you have to scoot your chair in closer to the desk so that your forearms stay parallel. And they did some studies that show that, hey, if your shoulders are a little elevated and they're not relaxed, it increases how hard you type on your keys. And I read another study recently that said that how hard you type on your keys is relating or has been associated with neck and low back pain. So just having your forearms parallel can prevent that. So pay attention to it. So again, reviewing the three things: when you sit up tall, eyes at the top 1/4 of the monitor or slightly above it, slightly tilted back, one arms rule distance plus or minus your hand distance. Keep your wrists, forearms, and shoulders in neutral. Keep your shoulders relaxed on your desk or your armrest, and make sure your forearms are parallel like that. And that's it for these three. We're gonna move on, but first, we have a little pop quiz. And for anyone that's following along on stream, if you guys submit a video of your answer with the hashtag 1HP for extra life, we'll choose a winner to give an SSD, a solid state drive. So if you guys send that through, we'll pick a winner, and you'll feel really happy and really lucky. You'll also probably like us a little more. But for those that are here, if someone can show me the answer, I'll give you a shirt. So does anyone want to come up and win a shirt? Yeah? You want? All right, come on up. Show me. Show me the answer. And we'll hook it up with a nice shirt. Right over there. Let's see it. Yes. Cash me on stage. How about that? All right. So what is it? We have the three things to remember for your upper body. Is it A, chest up, shoulders forward, chin down? Or is it B, chest up, shoulders back, and slightly up, and chin tucked? Or is it C, whatever that is?
B.
It's B. So can you show me?
Chest up,
Boom.
shoulders back, slightly up.
Yep. Boom. Done. Let's get her a shirt. Get her a shirt. He'll help you out with that.
All right.
Our man over there. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was perfect. She's been paying attention. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Okay. All right. Anyways, let's move on to the hot topic, to what everyone wants to know, which is the chair. Are gaming chairs good for you? That's the big question. And if they allow for the following rules to be satisfied, then yes. Yes, they are good for you. But remember that no matter how you set up your environment, if you have crappy, spilled water, rounded back, forward head posture, no chair will save you. Okay, so a great ergonomic setup just makes it easier for you to have better posture. So let's talk about the angle of the backrest. My rule says that it should be starting at 90 degrees, and then you bring it backwards to about 120 based on your comfort. And I want that to sink in a little bit, because I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, oh, well, what about that study that says the reclined position is better for your disc pressure. You mean the Wilk study, this one? Like JDM and his lounging? It's true, actually, yes. It is better for your disc pressure, but fortunately, they did more recent studies that said disc pressures have been shown to be not related to low back pain or disc degeneration. And even if you have any sort of imaging result on your MRI or X-ray that you have a disc herniation or there's narrowing of your foramen, that has no relation to the presence of low back pain. So, sorry, the reclined position is not better for your lower back than sitting upright. So, this. Okay? So remember, what is more important is that we minimize the activity of the muscles surrounding our lower back. And the way we do that is, again, with the neutral spine. And that's what you have to consider first. You set your body in neutral, or lower back in neutral, that bucket balance position, and then use the rule of 90, bringing it back to 120 based on your comfort. For the height of the chair, it's pretty straightforward. You just make sure it allows, to have you follow your posture rules, which is that your feet are flat on the ground, your hips are neutral, and they're parallel to the ground. So super straightforward, and just like that, the desk is even more straightforward. It should allow everything that I talked about to happen. So you need to have enough space on your desk to fit your monitor, to be one arm's rule away from you. It should allow enough space for your peripherals so that you can assume the neutral position, for your mouse to move around. It should also have enough space for your knees to be comfortably positioned underneath the table. So we can actually break down all these rules again, and if you guys are following along on the stream, you guys can set up your ergonomics while I'm talking about them. So you already have your desk. You know you can't change that. If you can, then that's pretty surprising. But you have your desk, and you sit up tall, like how I described. Chest up, chin tucked, shoulder blades up and back. And see if your eyes are at the top 1/4 of the monitor. Or they can be slightly above it. And then you put your arm out and see if it's one arm's distance away from you. If it is, then you're good. And remember, in general, further is a little better. Then check your peripherals, look at your keyboard, look at your mouse, and see if you are having your wrist in neutral. Not up, not down, not side to side when you're using them. And then check your armrests, and if you don't have an armrest, just use your desk. Make sure your forearms are parallel. And don't let your shoulders hike up. And then we can move on to the chair. Set your backrest to about 90 to 120 degrees based on your comfort, focusing on the neutral spine first. And then set the height so that your thighs are level, and make sure that your feet are in contact with the ground. So that's actually everything for posture and ergonomics. But we have to consider one thing too. Our friend, time, Mr. Time. Because we can sit with perfect posture and ergonomics for 24 hours straight, but that's not going to be good for us. And the recent news of that streamer who unfortunately passed away has shown us why. I mean, I'm sure the posture and ergonomics wasn't a big portion or perfect throughout that stream, but in the end, it shows us that, hey, gaming health is more than just posture and ergonomics. It's about not playing for 24 hours straight. And if you do, you should consider the other parts of your lifestyle. Breaks, nutrition, sleep, exercise, mindset, and a lot more. So realize that start your journey for better health with posture and ergonomics, but don't stop there. Consider everything else. And that's not it. That's everything for the tips. But I, again, want to help you guys understand how to actually do it, because like I said, there's millions of tips online about posture and ergonomics. Let's figure out how to actually do it and incorporate it into your life. So here's my methods, my secret methods, and keep in mind the numbers above are arbitrary based on the people that I work with. So one way you can improve your posture is through sheer willpower, and it's not always successful because how many of us really have this life goal of having perfect posture. Probably only two of us in the world, and I'm one of them. So whoever the other person is, we should be friends. And if you don't have any pain, you're not gonna want to pay attention to your posture. Or if you're really into the game, you're just gonna focus on the game and not pay attention to your posture. So to a certain extent, sheer willpower can help, but it's not gonna be successful for you. What's more important is using or creating a plan. So reminders, signs, associations. So things like setting up an alarm on your phone to beep every 50 minutes, just once. And then when you hear it, just sit up taller. You don't even have to go through the 6 tips that I mentioned. Just remember, okay, when it beeps, I'm just gonna sit up taller. You can also set a rule after every 1 to 2 competitive Q games that you can take 30 seconds to pay attention to your posture. And going through those 6 cues that I talked to you guys about, the chest up, chin tucked, shoulder blades back and up, bucket balance, hips neutral, feet supported, that's less than 30 seconds for sure. Especially if you keep a little note near your desk to remind yourself about that. So the plan always wins. Other methods include things like exercising, taping, and another one actually called dramatizing or acting as if. When you remind yourself about posture, try to over dramatize and have too erect posture with your head all the way back and sit up too tall. That has actually been shown to change your set point a little more quickly. So you can try all those things. But in reality, it's really a combination of everything. Have some willpower, have a plan, exercise regularly or do some posture exercises, act as if, and realize that it takes time to change your posture. So that's really the main topics of discussion I wanted to share with you guys. And I did want to leave a little bonus, which is a 3-minute exercise routine you guys can do in between your games. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the exercises with some GIFs that I made. There's 3 of them. And you do it for 1 minute each. 1 minute of the first exercise, which I call the what up. And you're basically standing with your palms starting facing each other and then rotating it out so it's facing away from each other. And like a triangle. And then you squeeze your shoulder blades at the end and you can hold it there. So if I show you guys again in person, just standing like this. So you're holding it at that end position for about 5 seconds, and then you repeat it for 1 minute. And that's the what up. The second is a nice looking stretch. And basically you're just doing a half lunge and you're reaching over the side. And you should kind of feel a stretch on the front side of your left body or whatever body you're kind of reaching over with, whatever part of your body you're reaching over with. It's a nice casual stretch that you can do, and we're going to be doing it on both sides. So about 20 to 30 seconds on each side. And the last one is the one we did earlier. The one where you can do it while you're still sitting, which is your elbows aren't going back. You reach up toward the ceiling, you breathe, you bring it back down, and you exhale. So we're going to do it. So for everyone that's following along, again, there's going to be a little timer, and we're going to do all of them. Let's go through it. Nice and easy. Hope that's feeling good. We're just going to keep going. Ooh, it's cutting off a little bit. But it's kind of winding down. 5, 4, 3, 2. And let's move on to the stretch. So have a split stance and reach over the front leg, up and back, and you're just gonna hold it for 20 to 30 seconds. And you should feel kind of this nice stretch at the front of your left hip. If your right leg's behind you, if your right leg's in front of you, if your left leg is in front of you, you should feel it in the front of your right hip. Wow, yes, that feels great. Yes. So now let's switch, go to the other side. And in the same way, you just should feel the stretch in the front of the hip. I can finally breathe. Feels so nice. Okay. And make sure you keep holding that for about 20 to 30 seconds. We're almost there. Whew. Feels good. And the last one you can do in sitting again. We're doing that same position. And it's 10 to 12 repetitions. Seems like a lot, but it's not. Feels really good. Whew. I feel really good. I can run a marathon right now. All right, here we go. So that's basically it. I want to thank Esports Arena Extra Life for having me. I hope you guys learned a lot. And if you guys do want to learn a little more about what I'm doing with CLG, just in general in the esports arena, follow me on Twitter at HP4Gamers. You can also learn a little more about everything I talked about on my website at 1hp.org. And I'm also really curious about what everyone's biggest issue when it comes to managing their health as a gamer. And I made a little survey. So I'm not sure if we can add that link on stream somehow, but if you guys can help me out with that, I'd really appreciate it. And I can answer any questions over at my booth, which is going to be at the left side of the arena. And that's basically it. Thank you guys again. If you guys have any questions, you guys can shout me out on Twitter too. But that's all.